Dave. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me, Antina. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Dave. Always a pleasure. And thank you again for taking time out. I know our viewers are keen to hear from you. So before we get started, Dave, for those who are tuned in, who may not be as familiar with you, could you please take a few minutes to introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about your background and what you're doing currently?
Yeah, sure thing, Natine. My name is Dave Duganne. I'm currently a Senior Manager, Consumer Insights at Dish Network. So I have responsibility right now for overseeing all the research on the video services side, which covers the Dish and Sling brands. I before I've been with Dish for about 5.5 years now, and before joining Dish, I had about 2 decades on the supplier side with Harris Interactive for many years, where I focused on automotive and transportation research. Just focused on an industry and worked across a lot of different types of studies. And then I spent several years at GFK, where I focused on customer experience through the lens of mystery shopping and auditing.
That's wonderful, Dave. And I really love that about your experience because you have such a diverse mix, not just in different verticals, but also both on the supplier and the client side. So I'm excited. Um, so the first question, Dave, that I have for you is, given your rich background, when your leadership comes to you and says, "Hey, great job," what are they typically counting on you for?
Yeah, that's a great question. So of course, anything that is really helping them drive business decisions, anything that we can apply an ROI to, which is really hard to do within the consumer insights and industry, but being able to provide that is important to them. Um, Sometimes, though, honestly, it can be as simple as providing an insight or a data point that makes them smarter. Typically, when board meeting time comes around, we're getting pings, getting questions about just different industry statistics and subscriber data, customer data. So having that is also something that they really appreciate. Um, Another thing the team is staying curious. As consumer insights professionals, we're all very curious, right? But it's coming to our leadership with ideas on what we need to learn and why. I'll see if I can say this right. Letting them know what they don't know they need to know. So really, doing active listening in all the different meetings and conversations we're having with them to really think about what we as an insights organization need to be focusing on and diving into to continue moving the company forward.
That's great, Dave. And from an insights perspective, um, you're correct. That is what the organization and the leadership typically expects from insights folks. In your specific world, Dave, can you talk a little bit about the challenges that you face, or what are some of the challenges that you're helping your teams, let me put it that way,
Mhm.
navigate, especially in context of, focusing on the customer, improving the customer experience?
Yeah, yeah. So just to provide some context to Natine, last year, right about this time, our team sat within the marketing organization, and we were actually moved to the customer experience organization. I understand as I talk to other CI professionals that that's something that is not uncommon these days, where teams are being moved together. And the reason our company did that was for us to really be closer to the teams that are working on the day-to-day transactional customer experience studies, your NPS, your overall satisfaction, your interaction with an agent or a technician or the product, and those types of experiences that trigger a survey. And it's really been, and also on that front too, having those folks be closer to us that are working on the industry trends and looking at brand health and other metrics that drive the business. So wanted to provide that context as well. Um, and also, our team works with a lot of different departments. We primarily work with the marketing organization, but we also work with product. We work with, of course, our CX colleagues and other areas of the company. So all that to say is we're looking at customer experience from a lot of different ways. We're a very high involvement and complex category, TV, media, and entertainment. So there are so many touch points, especially with the product, and so many mechanisms for delivering content. For example, Sling TV is available on probably 15 to 20 different devices, right? So determining what to focus on can be a challenge because consumers are watching upwards of 6, 8, 10 hours of TV a day. So
Mm.
there's a lot of opportunity for them to interact with it in so many different ways. It's not just the delivery of the signal, but the features, the functionality, and really understanding that and keeping track on that. One of the areas I want to focus on in the conversation is I mentioned we work very closely with the marketing organization. So, which is a really big part of the customer experience, that purchase journey. And, we're working with them to make sure we're delivering the right message at the right time, that we're educating customers as they look at and evaluate our product and service and the content we're providing, the features and functionality. So we live in a very complex world. I mean, we deliver pay TV services, but there are a lot of other services out there like your Netflixes and Paramount Pluses and these free services that are really having a lot of momentum that all impact how we're perceived. So making sure we're educating customers on exactly what they're getting when they sign up for Dish or Sling is really important and really challenging. Our group president is very adamant on always making sure that we talk about how our product equals a promise. So that
Mm.
journey into our brand is one of the critical things that I and my team spend a lot of time working on. Um, like I said, to make sure we're really delivering on that level of understanding and helping potential customers make a informed decision.
That's great, Dave. I think that's a wonderful experience share, and I really like the focus that you have on looking at customer journeys, and you talked about key moments. For our viewers who may not be as well versed in the world of customer journeys, I want to double click a bit on what you said. Looking at these key moments is so very critical. When one does surveys or touch point efforts, those are great because they, as you know, Dave, they provide a snapshot of what's happening in that moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
But when you plot those together from a journey perspective, that is where, in my experience, the whole story tends to emerge. Where are places where there are pain points?
Mm-hmm.
Where are places where there are peak points? And,
Yep.
as you know, Dave, understanding these pain points, peak points are so very critical because not just in your world where you have consumers really engaged for so many hours in a day, like you said, but even in other verticals, understanding your customer's journey from start to finish and understanding these key moments is so critical because something that we like to guide our clients on is, the customer is not part of your journey as a
Mhm.
provider. You are part of the customer's journey. And that is, the key idea that organizations, not just in your industry, Dave, but in other verticals also really need to comprehend. Because if we don't understand what's key to the customer, what are the key moments of truth, as we like to call in the journey vernacular,
Mhm.
then, the customer merely abandons you and holds your competitor's hand and continues on with their journey.
Mhm.
So when you talked about really understanding their key moments, I wanted to highlight why that is so critical.
Yeah, yeah, very much so. Again, being a high involvement category, that there's so much. I was talking to one of my colleagues yesterday who did a very sizable journey mapping exercise earlier this year for one of our brands, and um, what she was telling me and some of the work that they're doing as a follow-on to that is they're taking so do a whole journey map and they're taking different elements of it. Okay, take billing and credit for example, right? So they're now working directly with the billing and credit team to identify, here's the journey that we learned, here are the pain points, and then working with them about through ways to solve them. And she made a really interesting point, which I think a lot of us insights professionals don't always think about, that it's not only the customer experience that we need to take into consideration. And for example, her role consulting with that team, it's also the employee experience that needs to be taken into consideration. So how much effort is needed to evaluate that particular pain point, in making sure that it's something that really has true um, like immersive involvement in solving in something that the employee is going to be engaged in and not look at it as something that they stick a band-aid on that could like slowly peel apart and then turn into even a bigger wound, for example. So I thought that was a really interesting perspective on it. And one other thing too, Natine, that I work on a lot is our brand health tracking. I oversee that for the video services brands. And we look at it as brand being a driver of the business. There are certain KPIs that we need to pay attention to, funnel metrics, of course, being just one of them. But really, the partner we have gives us the ability to really dive into the functional experience, the uh, sorry, it's not going to flow well, but the experiential experience, right? But also the emotional experience, right? Because what we deliver in TV is a very emotional product. We're in the process of doing a needs-based segmentation right now, and we identified over 30 different emotional need states in our research. Actually, I think we identified over 50, but to keep our survey down to a normal length, we had to bring it down to about 30. So it's such an emotional process. And while, we think about oftentimes what we deliver as being emotional, like being a sports fan or really following a reality show closely or something like that, that evokes a lot of emotion. There's emotion in all of the different experiences that we deliver on just through the day to day. So we're taking a look at, I mean, I mentioned the journey mapping and looking at the process flow, but also taking that brand health perspective and looking at what experiences impact our brand health so we can like focus in on some additional elements of the experience and improve upon them from an acquisition perspective, from a retention perspective, from delivery perspective. So there's so many um, unique ways that we as insights professionals really have to tackle the customer experience. It's so fascinating, and even in just preparation for our conversation and trying to think of, okay, like what projects that I'm working on that impact the experience, to be honest, it's most of them, right? Even though it might not be a working directly with the CX team on a project, everything we do impacts the customer, right? And every moment is an opportunity to deliver and delight or to detract. And it's, I smile because it's so, it has such an impact, the work that we have the opportunity to do. I'm a big believer in that a lot of little things can make a big difference, right? So, um, sometimes things that might seem insignificant when you continuously improve and build and iterate and innovate, it can make a huge difference on the experience. And I talk about our category a lot being hyper competitive, but that's, I'm sure other practitioners and other categories are experiencing the same thing every day. Somebody wants to enter the category with something new and different, and that's the next best thing, the next big thing. And it's always challenging to keep up, and experience is such a big part of that. Um, we always need to pay a lot of close attention to it.
Now that's great, Dave, and I completely concur with you, especially, given the segment that you play in. So let's dive in a little deeper. You've talked about journey work and you've talked about brand health work. For the benefit of our viewers, can you please go a little deeper into talking about um, a recent or any customer journey work that you've been a part of, and how you went about it, what you did, and what was the end impact on your organization?
Yeah. So, just naturally in my career, I've fallen into a camp of having a lot of focus on the early customer journey. So from, let's say, the point of right before somebody is subscribing, or let's say going through an experience to purchase, into that initial experience with the product or service. Like, for example, in my mystery shopping days and working with a technology retailer, we learned that of all of the process of purchasing something, making a subscription, one of the biggest um, influencers on the experience was opening the door on the way out of the store. So it's stuff like that. It's just really fascinating. But to speak to some of the recent work that I've done in that area of early customer journey, there was for one of our brands, we worked with our product team who has responsibility for onboarding and education. And we have customer panels for both Dish and Sling. So in this case, we reached out to the brand's customer panel with a survey about all of the different areas of opportunity that we have for education, to find out how well informed they are. Thinking back to when you subscribed to the service initially, what would have helped is, so let's say your lower score one area of education a little bit lower, like what could have helped you really better understand that. And just going through that entire process, but not just talking to brand new customers in this case, talking to more tenured customers that have experience with the product, so we're getting their perspective as well. um, I was looking at the report with one of my colleagues today, and we even had some folks there who had it for a long period of time, and they could still think back to what would have been helpful early on and what would be helpful now because well, we're always adding new product, new features and benefits to the service. So, but what it's allowing the product team to do and that has responsibility for onboarding education is really focus in on like what's the low hanging fruit, what are some immediate um, just actions they can take to address some of the challenges, what materials can they work to develop, whether that's like emails or like how we deliver that. And the team, we just delivered the report last week, I want to say, but just giving them an early top line before delivering the full report, we're already starting to work on the first survey for the implementation of one of the insights we got from the research. They're going to be rolling something out in several weeks from now. So we're developing the survey to say, okay, you know, how was the education for this this part of your experience? And so already starting to make an impact on what and what we can do to just better educate our customers and that education mechanism, how impactful that is.
Dave, that's a great example, and I want to double click on a few items that you shared so that our viewers don't drive by quickly, because I think you mentioned a lot of relevant items. The first thing that I want to double click on is your focus on segmenting customers
Mhm.
by their tenure. I think that's a great approach.
Mhm.
I think by doing it that way, obviously you got the benefits that you did, but that is also something we recommend to our clients as well. Um, journey work, as you know, Dave, is the gift that keeps on giving. And
Mhm.
the more richer and more precise you can make it by involving any kind of segmentation or building upon any kind of customer segmentation is always a great plus.
Yeah.
In addition to having customers of different tenure or different features involved, something that we also recommend to a lot of our clients is um, have customers of your competitors
Yep.
in this effort as well, so that you can get some additional perspective on what your competitors are doing. So I thought that was a great point that you brought up, Dave. Another item that I want to focus on is how you talked about uh, driving action and driving impact based on the findings. What improvement actions need to be taken, especially, like you said, hearing from customers on what we could have done some time ago when we were launching this, what would have they liked to see. I thought that was a great comment, Dave. In our work with designing research, whether it's journey research or any other type of work, what we often like to guide clients on is having that type of end goal or end impact, really clear in the design stages early on. The phrase that we like to use is, well, let's pretend that this effort goes really well.
Mhm.
What would success look like to you? And
Yeah.
that's a question we encourage our clients to ask their stakeholders, especially when they're doing any kind of research or brand tracking work. Because when you ask those types of questions, Dave, as you know, what happens then is your internal stakeholders will tell you why they're even commissioning this research, what's really important for them. And what we like to guide our clients is, you know, we as researchers, Dave, get really excited about the how. How are we
Mhm.
going to do this? Who are we going to survey? What new shiny tool we may use, in this
Yeah.
effort. But our clients, our internal stakeholders don't really care so much about the how. They care
Hmm.
about it, but what's really dear and near to them is, how is this going to impact my business? Is this going to solve the itch that I have? And so, the guidance that we provide to our clients, Dave, is have that impact, that desired impact, be really clear for everyone involved upfront. And then once you clear on the what and the why, then design the research, these journey efforts or other efforts around that. Um, I don't know if this has ever happened to you, Dave, but I have a lot of clients and viewers that tell me, we do this research and it looks great and we spend a lot of time and resources on it. And then we get back data and then it's analysis paralysis because everything looks great. But then, the question leadership asks is, okay, so what do we do next?
Yeah.
What change do we have to make? And I think to your point, Dave, if this is designed in a way where the end goal or impact is really clear up front, then, that becomes almost like the North Star or the guiding light. So every question needs to be viewed from the lens of, is this going to get us closer to the desired impact or the desired result that we want? And if it does not, then it's just a nice to know question. Well, let's just put it on the back burner, for now. And doing it this way, Dave, I want to share this with you and our viewers as well. Doing it this way, not only does it protect you from that analysis paralysis stage at the end, but what it also does is it really crystallizes the impact of that research effort very clearly for you. In
Hmm.
fact, what we recommend to clients is be so clear on the business impact, even get it down to what it means in financial terms. So, for example, if the idea of doing a journey effort is to improve satisfaction, right? What we guide our clients is, well, what does that mean? How much do you want to improve the satisfaction by? If you want a 10-point or 20-point increase in the NPS scores, then that needs to be the desired goal of that journey effort or that research effort. And then at the end of the day, you should be able to not only design the study for that, but also show your leadership that if we are able to make these improvements, this is the net impact we're expecting on our CX scores.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of great points. I'll talk through a couple of those. So, in terms of, I talked about my time on the supplier side. So yeah, like yourself, we'd sit down and we'd have the conversations. What are your, not just what are your research objectives? How is this project going to drive the business? Our team is a center of excellence within the organization. So you're exactly right. We're trusted to build a methodology, bring recommendations about how to go about it, and we fortunately built the trust in our stakeholders and the folks we work with that the research is going to be structured in a way that's going to help answer the business objectives, so the questions we're writing, the methodology, and all that. I mean, trust me, we get asked tough questions about it, but there's a lot of trust and great partnership with our stakeholders to easily address those questions. I mentioned earlier that attaching ROI to, like, survey data is really hard, and we are a data-driven organization, and again, fortunately, with the relationships we have with our stakeholders and with leadership, they understand that we can come to them with, you're going to get this much lift if you in satisfaction if you add this feature, for example. And we're not always going to translate that to dollars and cents. The finance team might be able to do that, but we're going to be able to provide context. Is a 5 point lift good? Is a 10 point lift good? Like, what's the threshold that should help drive the business decision? And I mean, we make recommendations on moving forward. We make recommendations on, potentially not moving forward with things, and really providing that advice. But going back to the brand health, I mean, that's an area I think all of us CI professionals can empathize with. That isn't an area that's really hard to link those metrics together. But we were able to do that recently to say, okay, if the score for what we have with our brand health partner lifts by 1 point in any given month, well, what does that mean for acquisitions in the future, like for the first month, and how does that tail across other months? So it can be done, and when it is done, and you can make those linkages, it's super impactful. But it takes a lot of hard work and rigor, and then convincing to really make that happen. So yeah, all great points that you just shared there.
Yeah, no, thank you, Dave. And this is a big challenge for insights professionals everywhere. How do you justify ROI? How do you justify the not just the budget, but the overall investment in any research project? I'll share something with you as well as for the benefit of our viewers, something that I have seen work really well for our clients. And what we like to do, Dave, is not just design for that impact, but when we are doing, especially journey efforts, with journey efforts, we have the ability to focus on pain points
Mm-hmm.
and determine those key moments of truth in each stage of the customer's journey. What we've seen our clients do is, what they let us do is, when we are encountering those key pain points, something that we ask the customers or the participants are, okay, so we understand this is a pain point. You're not happy about this in this stage of your journey. If this pain point persists, what is the action you're going to take?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And especially when we're doing those paths to purchase type efforts. And so a lot of times, Dave, what will happen is the customers will say, well, in this stage, I'm just not getting this information, for example, that I was seeking. And because I don't get it, I'm just going to abandon this product or
Mm-hmm.
this company, and I will go look for this with a competitor. Well, our next question then is, okay, how much were you going to spend? Had you found this information, right? And so those are dollar amounts that we get from customers where they are telling us, well, I would have spent X, but now I'm going to reduce it by X, or it's going to be zero because I'm just going to go get subscription from somewhere else, for example.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Right? Now imagine having those dollar amounts across all stages throughout the customer's journey, right?
Yeah.
And what we then also ask the customer is, well, what would help you alleviate or remove this pain point, right? And so they
Mm-hmm.
tell us, well, in this case, I'm looking for this information. If I get this, and if I get it through this channel, then, this pain point would no longer be there. Now
Mm-hmm.
imagine when the insights are being presented, we're identifying where the pain points are, and we're also identifying the dollar amount that customers said, so those are not coming from, internally, they need to be vetted, but those are still indicators on this is what we call as the revenue leakage,
Yeah.
in each stage. Now,
Yeah.
I'll share this as an example, Dave, without really mentioning the client's name. So we did this effort for a client, and for them, the key impact that they were desiring was we need to have lift in sales, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we identified all these areas where there were pain points, where if the pain points were removed, then the customer would do by X more, okay? Or the cost leakages would be X, right? When we presented the insight, especially for the senior leadership, we tabulated all of those dollar values across the journey stage. And our
Hmm.
sampling was robust where we were able to project it for, the entire segment. Um, the client came back and said, you guys are saying that if we did all of this, the increase would be, there is a $70 million opportunity. We think those numbers are high. Let's work on it internally, right?
Hmm.
So they worked on it and they said, well, we think the opportunity is 50 million, not 70. I said, guys, that's great, right? So it's
Yeah, yeah.
50. That was a journey project where the total spend was like a fraction of that cost, right?
Exactly.
I
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
so let me ask you this. Are you happy with the results? And they're like, oh man, we're thrilled. This is
Yeah.
fantastic. Because then with leadership, they're able to make the case on why we should make the investment in removing these pain points. It's
Hmm.
no longer limited to because 20% of our customers said this or 30% said this.
Yeah.
Now it's like if we make this change or investment, this is the lever we need to pull to recover or make so much, right?
Yeah.
So it really elevated the discussion to where the research team, the CI team, was being looked more as a profit center versus,
Mm.
and a support center.
Okay.
Does that
Yeah.
make
Oh
sense?
man. Yeah, yeah. Ooh, I don't know if I want to become a P&L center, but
Uh,
maybe a center of assisting with profit, which we all do. But um yeah, yeah, I think that's a great approach because it takes um impact, right? So there could be the well the um and prioritization into account, right? Because something could increase by, or let's say decrease by 1 point and have as much impact on financials as something that decreases by 5 points. So it really helps understand the prioritization and in this case where your client needed to focus on to have the most impact. And I mean, to our conversation, like every high involvement categories, and that's not uncommon. So but really knowing what to focus on is critical, and that's a great example of how to make it happen. So yeah, thanks for that.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Dave. So, Dave, I know we're almost at the end of our time, but I wanted to quickly ask you if you had the opportunity to redo or do some of these research efforts again, is there anything that you think you would do different to improve the results?
Yeah, I think just finding opportunities to get a little bit of more qualitative as you go through the process. I mean, that could be either through deeper open-ended questions or the opportunity to like have a complementary study where you're getting videos and talking to customers about it. Because I mean, let's say building on the example that you just talked about, let's say there were customer videos and testimonials implemented into that, that could even make leadership even be more empathetic and more understanding of what some of those pain points mean to the customers. Because our eh, they're so accustomed or to seeing data from us that just having that video evidence, like a sizzle reel or even just a couple of minutes of somebody talking about that experience is so impactful. And I see that all the time with the work we do. So just integrating that more into some of the customer experience, customer journey work is probably something I do to just help bring it more to life.
That's a great example, Dave. Thank you for sharing that. And I will say your instincts are spot on. Every time that we have embedded that type of rich visual and audio components either in our journey work or other work, it has never failed, not just to impress the client, but also to drive action, to drive
Yeah.
empathy, to really walk in the customer's shoes. So I think your instincts are spot on, and I will encourage you to do that, whenever you can on your next effort.
Yeah.
You will not be disappointed.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. We're seeing some examples of it now. Um, and yeah, it's so powerful. We just need to be doing more of it. And I'm sure our insights team is not alone in that in that assessment. So yeah.
Wonderful, Dave. Well, thank you so much for your comments. I think viewers who tuned in will walk away with a lot of gold from your commentary and our discussion. So thank you again.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to spend this time with you, Nitin.